You're here right now because something deep inside you knows that true healing doesn't come from a pill, a bottle, or an external solution. What I'm about to share with you is an ancient wisdom rooted in the teachings of Thoth, the master architect of consciousness. This knowledge has been deliberately kept hidden from you not because it's irrelevant, but because it directly threatens every system built on your dependence on external remedies. What I'm about to reveal is not just a theory or philosophy. It's a universal truth, an alchemical secret that illness is not your body betraying you. It's a signal. It's a disruption in the symphony of your internal universe, a discord in the harmony that should naturally flow through you. The true restoration of this harmony exists within three essential principles that are already encoded in your very being, waiting for you to awaken them. The establishment fears you discovering this power because once you activate these three elements, you reclaim what they have spent millennia trying to erase from your consciousness, the sovereignty of your own healing. These forces are not abstract. They are alive within you, and when they align and ignite together, they have the potential to dissolve illness at its root without the need for any external intervention. The power of healing is and always has been within you. But here's the crucial part: if you leave before the end, you'll miss the final integration, the binding key that unifies these three elements into unshakable vitality. You need that final piece to complete the puzzle, to fully activate the healing potential that lies dormant within you. Before we go deeper, pause and reflect. Do you sense that there's a healing intelligence in your body, one that no one has taught you to access? If you feel that, write this down: the power lies within. Now, if you're ready to remember, let's dive into this. Understand this: the line between remedy and toxin is not defined by the substance itself, but by its dosage and intention. For your entire life, you've been told that wellness is something that can only be manufactured in sterile laboratories controlled by pharmaceutical giants, distributed through a medical system that profits from your continued return visits. This story has been repeated so often you might have started to believe it's the truth. But what if I told you that unshakable health, the kind of health that transcends sickness and fear, has always been accessible to you? What if I told you that the knowledge of this health is so potent that ancient power structures labeled it dangerous, even heretical? This is the revolutionary question that Thoth's wisdom forces us to confront. Thoth, the Egyptian master known to the Greeks as Hermes Trismegistus, wasn't describing chemical compounds or pharmaceutical remedies. He was describing the very architecture of reality itself, the intricate relationship between your being and the universe at large. Recorded in the cryptic verses of the Emerald Tablet, this ancient science presents a law that shatters the conventional understanding of existence. As above, so below. This isn't just poetry. This is instruction for living, for healing, and for understanding the interconnectedness of everything. Your physical body, as Thoth teaches, is a holographic microcosm. It is a perfect miniature reflection of the vast cosmic macrocosm. When the universe exists in coherent order, in harmonic resonance, your body should naturally exist in perfect health because you are not separate from that order. You are an expression of it. Disease, then, is not an invading enemy, whether a bacterium or virus. Disease is a vibrational misalignment, a breakdown in your internal coherence. It's a disruption in the fractal pattern that connects you to universal harmony. And just as a single offbeat note can disrupt an entire symphony, this disharmony in your body leads to illness. This sacred knowledge resurfaced in the 1500s through Paracelsus, a renegade alchemist and physician who defied the medical orthodoxy of his time. He rejected the outdated theories that dominated the medical world and introduced the concept of the tria prima, the three prime salt, sulfur, and mercury. These were not to be understood as literal chemicals, but as philosophical principles, energetic templates governing the body, soul, and spirit. These principles, salt, sulfur, and mercury, represent the alchemical forces of body, soul, and spirit. Paracelsus taught that disease originates from a malfunction in your body's alchemical process, the intricate mechanism within you that separates, purifies, and recombines your energetic and physical components. When this internal alchemy fails to function perfectly, illness manifests. Paracelsus showed us that we are by nature alchemists. Healing is not about seeking external solutions, but about remembering and reactivating the perfect alchemical capacity within us. This concept terrified the gatekeepers of power, medical, religious, and political systems because it meant that individuals would no longer need institutions for healing. The knowledge of self-healing would undermine their authority and they would lose control. The wisdom of Thoth and Paracelsus offers you the key to reclaiming your sovereignty. The three elements salt, sulfur, and mercury are not substances to be consumed. They are living principles, forces within you. When aligned, they restore the harmony and vitality that you were born with but may have forgotten. This knowledge is not just about healing physical illness. It's about returning to your wholeness, a state that was never truly lost, just obscured. This is your liberation. The pathway back to vitality and sovereignty is through the awakening of these three forces. When they align, you no longer need external prescriptions or treatments. You activate the healing force within you, reclaim your health, and step into your destiny as the conscious architect of your own vitality. But for this to happen, you must challenge the way you've been conditioned to think about health. The dominant medical paradigm views your body as a machine where illness is a defect that requires external fixes. Symptoms are seen as enemies to be suppressed rather than messages to be decoded. This model keeps you perpetually dependent, forever seeking the next intervention, prescription, or expert opinion. Thoth's wisdom operates from a radically different paradigm. It recognizes that your body is an intelligent, self-organizing system, a holographic fragment of universal consciousness. Your healing capacity is already encoded within. What's revolutionary about this understanding is that it shifts the locus of power. Healing is no longer something done to you. It is something you activate from within. The three elements, salt, sulfur, and mercury, are not isolated principles. They form a dynamic triad that mirrors the fundamental structure of reality itself. Body, soul, spirit, matter, energy, consciousness, form, force, intelligence. When these three elements are in harmonic resonance and coherent alignment, disease cannot exist. Disease is a state of incoherence, fragmentation, and separation from the unified field of consciousness. Quantum physics and ancient mysticism speak the same language. The observer effect in quantum mechanics shows us that consciousness directly influences physical reality. The act of observation collapses the wave function, determining which possibility manifests into form. Your body is matter, energy, and consciousness responds to the quality of your awareness. When you exist in fear, fragmentation, and disconnection, your body mirrors that incoherence as disease. But when you shift into presence, wholeness, and alignment, your body recalibrates toward health. This is not metaphor, this is mechanism. To awaken these forces, however, you must first confront the greatest obstacle. Every human carries the energetic toxins accumulated over a lifetime. These toxins manifest as chronic suffering, pain, and recurring illness. You might feel ready to heal, but the real first step isn't about light, love, or affirmations. It's about accepting an inner collapse, a necessary destruction. This inner collapse is the purification process. It is the dissolving of crystallized errors you've carried. The alchemical stage called negrado, the blackening, is not something you can skip. It is the dissolution, the decay, and it is absolutely essential for authentic transformation. This destruction is the gateway to true freedom from illness.
The path to health that Thoth described doesn't begin with radiant transformation. It begins with the deepest darkness.
Only through embracing this necessary destruction can you step into the light of true healing. Only through the negrado can you dissolve the energetic toxins blocking your vitality and step into the fullness of your own potential. This is the alchemical process of becoming whole again. It is at this darkest depth, deep within the core of your psychological and somatic being, that you are forced to confront the accumulated poison you've carried since your first breath. Through every trauma, every suppressed emotion, and every unprocessed experience, This poison manifests as energetic debris, unmetabolized resentment, unhealed wounds, crystallized fears, all embedded in your nervous system and within your cellular memory. This accumulation is the true root cause of your physical and emotional disease, and it must be addressed if you are to ever experience true healing. In alchemical and mystical traditions, this phase is known as Negrado, the dark night of the soul. It is the crisis that arises to shatter the false structure you've built in order to cope, survive, and appear functional. It destabilizes everything in your life, forcing you to face the painful truths you've long avoided. But it must destabilize because only through this disruption can your authentic, uncorrupted essence finally emerge. This experience is not merely psychological. It is deeply somatic and it touches the very core of your being. The Negrado period feels like it will destroy you, shaking your foundation, plunging you into a state of existential suffering and disorientation. However, paradoxically, this is the only fire hot enough to separate the pure from the impure within you. In alchemical traditions, the fire of crisis, your own suffering, burns through the impurities in your being, forcing the separation of your fractured self from the parts that are out of alignment with your true essence. Trying to bypass this stage or seeking immediate relief is futile. It guarantees that your transformation will be shallow, temporary, and built on unstable ground. If you try to skip Negrado, you risk a fatal mistake. The healing you achieve will be fragile, superficial, and rooted in unresolved pain. It will always be at the mercy of the unresolved wounds that you have neglected. Paracelsus, the great alchemist, understood this deeply. He recognized that nothing is inherently poison, nor is anything inherently pure. What determines the outcome is the dose, the context, and the preparation. The same energy that can cause disease when unbalanced can also become the catalyst for profound healing once purified and properly integrated.
Suffering in this alchemical view is not a punishment. It serves a sacred function.
By accepting the decay and dissolution of Negrado, you stop seeing suffering as an enemy. Instead, you begin to recognize it for what it truly is: raw material, dense matter that must be distilled and refined. This is the beginning of the first element of Thoth's teaching, salt. Salt in alchemical and hermetic philosophy represents fixity, the principle of solidification. It is the foundation of your health, the material vessel that holds and anchors the other two more fluid and volatile elements. It's not just your physical body, it is the solid framework that supports your existence both physically and energetically. But salt's power extends beyond biological cleansing. It enters the energetic, karmic, and subtle realms of your existence. Salt serves as a living archive of everything you've ever experienced. It functions as the energetic hard drive of your entire existence, storing memories, not just from your conscious mind, but from your somatic body, every suppressed emotion, every unprocessed trauma, every unresolved resentment. These experiences, if left unprocessed, solidify within you. They crystallize and become locked in your cellular structure, restricting the flow of your life force. In essence, salt holds the record of your entire life, including your ancestral inheritance and the psychic imprints passed down through generations. From the perspective of contaminated salt, illness is the direct manifestation of these crystallized memories embedding themselves into your physical structure. This causes rigidity, chronic pain, and a blockage in the flow of vitality. It is as if salt is the clay that forms your life, and when it becomes saturated with fixed impurities, unprocessed fear, trauma, and pain, it becomes hard and inflexible, unable to be reshaped or healed through the natural currents of vitality. This crystallization of unresolved pain, fear, and trauma prevents cellular regeneration. It blocks your body's innate healing mechanisms. However, in ancient traditions, there is a simple and powerful method for dissolving this crystallization and restoring the body's natural fluidity: salt purification. Salt is a neutralizer, a subtle solvent that dissolves the crystallized blockages within you. It is a purifier on both the energetic and physical levels. When combined with water, it serves as a powerful tool for cleansing, a ritual act that frees you from the stagnant energies of the past and opens the door to deeper transformation. In ancient purification ceremonies, salt was used in cleansing baths and sea bathing rituals. These practices, found across various cultures from Roman to Japanese, were not superstitions, but rather practical, conscious applications of alchemical purification. The ritual use of salt and water helps to dissolve the fixity within the body, breaking down the crystallization of Negrado and allowing for the free flow of energy throughout the system. Salt, when used in this way, functions as a vibrational shield, a cleanser that restores balance to your subtle body and energy field. The act of bathing in salt water is not just about cleaning your skin, it is a sacred act of release. It is a conscious decision to let go of what no longer serves you, creating space for the new to emerge. However, the power of salt purification is not just in the physical act of cleansing, it is amplified by intention. The difference between a casual bath and an alchemical purification ritual is the quality of consciousness you bring to the process. When you enter the water with clear intention, consciously invoking the release of specific patterns, traumas, and crystallized memories, you elevate the effectiveness of the purification exponentially. You are no longer a passive recipient of healing. You become an active participant in your own transformation. This is the beginning of reclaiming your power as the alchemist of your own destiny. But even after cleansing the salt, the Negrado stage is not complete. There's still a deeper descent to go. This descent takes you to a place where all external light vanishes completely, and you are left in a moment of absolute stillness. This is the phase where the clarity you've been seeking will either become permanent or remain just another fleeting glimpse. You've purified the salt. Your body feels lighter and you are experiencing the relief of karmic detoxification. But now you must sit with the darkness. The purification process isn't just about cleansing the physical body, it's about entering a state of radical stillness and receptivity. In this darkness, you will face the last remnants of your ego structures and your unhealed wounds. This is the point of no return. Here, you will either break through to the other side of transformation, or you will remain stuck in the cycle of suffering and survival. This darkness is where all healing begins. It is through this abyss that your deepest transformation takes place. Only by fully accepting the darkness of Negrado can you begin to heal the most deeply embedded aspects of your being. In this state, you will find the final release, the last piece of the puzzle that will allow you to step into the fullness of your vitality and your true self. This is the alchemical process of transformation. It is the journey of purifying your body, mind, and spirit, of releasing the crystallized pain that has held you captive for so long. Through salt water and intention, you become the alchemist of your own healing, reclaiming your sovereignty over your health, your life, and your destiny. The path to complete healing requires an essential stage of profound stillness and deep introspection, which is crucial for genuine transformation to occur. This stage is known as Negrado, the dark night of the soul. It is the moment when the moon withdraws completely from the sky, leaving you without external guidance. In this dark phase, you're forced to turn inward, facing yourself in complete silence. This phase is not about doing nor about seeking distractions. It is about surrendering to emptiness, to the profound silence of your inner world. It's symbolic of the death of the ego, the shedding of old identities and attachments. In this space, you experience grief and detachment from everything you've clung to, whether consciously or unconsciously. Only through embracing this total detachment can you create solid ground for the coming renewal. The alchemist in this phase is called to absolute silence, to radical self-awareness, and to the courage to sit with the inner darkness without reaching for comfort or demanding immediate answers from the conditioned, restless mind. This is not just about enduring the pain, but understanding it and allowing it to transform you. In this profound silence, you finally begin to comprehend that moments of shadow, those times of withdrawal and quiet suffering, are just as sacred, just as necessary to the journey as moments of light and joy. The darkness forces you to detach from the forms, the concepts, the false identities that have bound you throughout your life that no longer serve your evolution. It creates the necessary disidentification that is crucial for complete awakening. Rushing past this deep dive into self-awareness guarantees that any clarity you find will be fragile and superficial. The enlightenment you experience will be built on a foundation still infected with ego and the fear of uncertainty. Only by staying in this final darkness, by fully confronting it, can you ensure that the next phase, albeit the whitening or enlightenment, will be authentic, unshakable, and rooted in truth. The grief, confusion, and uncertainty you experience during the grotto are not signs of weakness or failure. They are proof that your soul structure is now solid and prepared. This marks the purification of your soul's architecture. It means that you have endured and transcended the impurities of your past and are now stable enough to receive the powerful energy of the next element without shattering or losing balance under its force. It is at the absolute bottom of the abyss, in the peak of silence, that you finally perceive the deepest truth about your essence. You realize that the darkness surrounding you is not an enemy. It is simply the absence of something you already possess, something you are about to ignite: your inner light, the essence of your soul, your desire. This essence is Sulfur, the second and most potent element of Thoth's teachings. It is the force that shatters the cycle of inertia and stagnation, and it transforms stillness into focused, directed action. Sulfur is the inner fire that drives you, the force of will, passion, and creative desire that propels you forward, birthing new realities. From the silence and total stillness of Grotto, where matter has been dissolved and darkness fully confronted, emerges the radiant energy of Sulfur. Sulfur represents the soul made active. It is your inner fire, the principle of will and creative desire. This fiery energy drives life forward, inspiring movement and manifestation. The mastery of Sulfur marks the explosive shift from the black work to the white work, the phase of consciousness enlightenment. It is the animating force that acts upon the purified salt, giving it purpose, direction, and essential movement. In alchemical symbolism, Sulfur represents the masculine energy of manifestation, the yang principle, which is opposed to the fixity of salt, the feminine yin receptive principle. This duality, salt and sulfur, is the engine of the alchemical work. The fire of Sulfur is the divine spark that resides within you, the driving force that propels your life with power, energy, direction, and intention. But Sulfur is not just a destroyer. It also unifies, dissolving darkness and establishing your purpose. It is the inner compass that guides you, bringing your light into form in the manifest world. Symbolized by the color white, represents the purification of the soul and the emergence of radical mental and spiritual clarity. This clarity does not come from external teachers or superficial spiritual trends, but from within your soul. It is an unshakable knowing of who you are and what you came here to accomplish. Free from the distortions of ego, it is the soul that now sees the path clearly. However, this enlightenment is not the end goal, it is the means to an end. Healing through Sulfur is about discovering and consciously channeling your life purpose. It is about awakening to your true passion, the reason you rise each day. The purified fire transmutes energy that was once destructive, energy that manifested as uncontrolled passion, addiction, and reactivity, into essential life force for your fulfillment and vitality. Salt, in its passive role, was the container. Sulfur is the engine that moves the work with intensity and focus, animating it and giving it life. When Sulfur is imbalanced or misdirected, it manifests as addiction, obsession, arrogance, or the self-destructive consumption of your own energy. It becomes passion without direction. Healing the soul in this context means radically replacing automatic reactions, those instinct-driven responses rooted in unpurified trauma, with focused intention, purpose, and alignment with spirit. Your passion must stop being a chaotic force that drags you into suffering and become a force that lifts you, propelling you toward liberation. It becomes an immense power that is now under your conscious command. The Hermetic tradition emphasizes that the will Sulfur must be purified. This means that your desires can no longer be the whims of the small self, the ego. They must become expressions of your higher will, the will of your authentic self. Purifying sulfur involves separating impure desires, which seek instant gratification, from true desires, which seek lasting fulfillment and alignment with your soul's purpose. This separation and redirection toward higher purpose is the first step in taming this vital, volatile energy. Sulfur, being the active principle of fire, is temperamental and unstable. It can become potentially explosive if not controlled by consciousness. Fire, as the ancients understood, is liberating, but if it is not forged, refined, and channeled with skill and awareness, it can manifest as uncontrolled rage, chaos, and resentment. These emotions consume the host, turning destructive and eventually manifesting as disease. Without conscious direction, the power of sulfur threatens to destroy the alchemist and obliterate the purified salt foundation. This phase demands vigilance. You cannot simply light the fire and walk away. You must become the blacksmith, consciously working in the furnace of your soul. The volatility of sulfur is a constant test, but it is what moves the world and creates change. Movement without direction, however, only creates turbulence and illness. The key is understanding that the power of creation and the power of destruction are the same force. Sulfur is neutral. It is your intention and consciousness that determine whether it heals or harms. Complete healing of the soul requires inner discipline, the transformation of blind impulse into sacred intentional action. Many spiritual seekers get lost because they confuse spiritual awakening with perpetual bliss, the elimination of all difficult emotions, or the transcendence of the human experience entirely. But true mastery is not about eliminating sulfur, suppressing passion, or becoming emotionless and detached. True mastery is about purification and direction. Your anger can become fierce compassion. Your fear can become protective wisdom. Your desire can become the fuel for manifesting your highest purpose. The energy doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to be refined, elevated, and channeled. Think of sulfur like electricity. It has immense power, but it must be carefully directed. Just like an electrical current can light a room, it can also burn down a building if uncontrolled. Similarly, when you channel your inner fire with consciousness and purpose, it becomes an unstoppable force that transforms your life and the world around you. Electricity in its raw form is chaotic, destructive, and dangerous. Lightning, for example, is an uncontrolled surge of power that can cause immense damage. But when this energy is properly channeled through conductors regulated through circuits, it becomes the driving force behind the illumination of entire cities, the operation of hospitals, and the communication systems that connect the world. This principle applies to your own emotional energy, your passion, and your sulfur, an energy that, when raw and unconscious, can destroy, but when refined and directed, can create miracles. The ancient mystery schools understood this dynamic deeply. Initiation rites were designed specifically to forge and purify the sulfur within initiates. These rites tested the ability to ignite passion, trigger fear, and activate desire, then taught initiates how to alchemize these forces instead of being consumed by them. Vision quests, dark night retreats, fasting ceremonies, these were not arbitrary traditions. They were tools for sulfur purification methods to transform the reactive emotional body into a conscious instrument of will. In modern life, you might not have access to traditional initiation rites, but you have access to something equally powerful: your daily life. Every challenge, every emotional trigger, every intense moment of feeling is an opportunity to practice sulfur mastery. When anger arises, instead of suppressing it or acting it out reactively, you can pause. You can breathe into it, feel the energy of it in your body, and consciously ask yourself, what is this energy showing me? What boundary needs to be established? What truth needs to be spoken? This is the essence of alchemy, channeling that fire into right action, into clear communication, into change that serves rather than harms. The question that defines your success in this phase is simple. How do you forge that inner fire, that wild passion, so that it becomes your greatest creative force? Instead of a destructive chaos that consumes you, when sulfur is uncontrolled, it manifests as emotional chaos, as destructive patterns, as the root of much psychological and physical suffering. True, stable enlightenment and soul healing requires this potent energy to be forged, directed, and transformed in the conscious inner forge of disciplined practice. You must take the chaotic heat of anger, fear, and wild passion and transform it into constructive heat that creates new inner order, new unshakable stability in your being. This forging happens through ritualistic dedication, through unwavering discipline. These principles form the foundation of ancient initiation practices and personal transformation systems. The transmutation of passion into purpose occurs in the inner forge, where the highest principles of humility, faith, and unconditional love serve as the anvil that supports the process. You use the heat of your emotions not to be consumed by them, but to mold your being into something purer, stronger, more stable. Deep commitment rituals across spiritual traditions symbolize this surrender of personal passion to a higher path, a path of service, of purpose beyond the self. The initiate takes a vow that transforms individual strength and ego into a vehicle for spiritual development, for service, for love. This principle of selflessness drives true evolution. This is how you heal the soul, by submitting burning desire to a greater conscious purpose that transcends the limited self. This conscious disciplined action solidifies ensuring that your enlightenment is not a fleeting moment of euphoria, but a permanent, unwavering stability of soul. You stop being a victim of your passions and become their master, directing the energy of sulfur with precision and focus. Your suffering transforms into constructive power, into vitality. The salt, the body, the matter is purified. The sulfur, the soul, the passion is directed and controlled. The foundation is solid and the engine of your transformation is running with purpose. But the highest, most volatile principle is still dormant, Mercury. It is the perfect mediator, and if it is not awakened and integrated, your body and soul remain vulnerable to chaos, to fragmentation. This third element of Thoth is the key to total order, to complete integration. It is invisible, silent, but it holds the secret to healing everything and to perfect unification. What is the single practice you need to master to activate Mercury and establish total order in your life? You now possess the fixed element salt and the active element sulfur. But unification is incomplete without Mercury, the third forbidden element of Thoth. It is the volatile principle, the spirit, the carrier of universal consciousness within you. It is the master intelligence that imposes order, enables movement, and is the ultimate key to total healing. Mercury reveals the primacy of spirit over matter, the ability to unite and harmonize all the elements within you. The key to mastering Mercury does not lie in ancient temples, esoteric texts, or inaccessible rituals. It lies in the most fundamental, most overlooked, and most powerful act of your life, your breath. Mastering Mercury in inner alchemy is achieved through conscious breath control. Techniques like pranayama from the yogic tradition are designed to regulate the breath, because the air you inhale and exhale is Mercury itself in its most accessible, immediate form. The act of consciously regulating your breathing, the cycle of inhaling, holding, exhaling, and holding again, induces deep relaxation in the body, calms the turbulent mind, and imposes rhythm and coherence on the autonomic nervous system. Breath is the breath of spirit. Light and airy, it can touch, harmonize, and govern both salt, the fixed body, and sulfur, the volatile passion, acting as the divine mediator between them. Here's what makes breath so extraordinary as the key to activating Mercury. It is the only physiological function that operates both autonomically and consciously. Your heart beats without your conscious input. Your cells divide without your awareness. But breath exists at the threshold between unconscious and conscious, between automatic and intentional. This makes it the perfect bridge, the perfect mediator between body and spirit, between matter and consciousness. When you breathe unconsciously, shallowly, reactively, you're living in a state of survival, a stress response, a fight or flight activation. Your sympathetic nervous system dominates. Cortisol floods your system. Inflammation increases. Your body remains in a state of defensiveness and contraction, which over time manifests as chronic disease. But when you breathe consciously, deeply, rhythmically, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response, the state of healing, regeneration, and coherence. This isn't just feel-good wellness advice. This is measurable, verifiable physiology. Heart rate variability studies show that coherent breathing patterns, typically around 5 to 6 breaths per minute, create optimal synchronization between heart-brain and respiratory rhythms. This state of coherence is where healing happens most efficiently. It's where your body shifts from survival mode into thriving mode, from defense into growth, from fragmentation into wholeness. What's even more profound is that breath doesn't just affect your individual physiology. It affects your energetic field, your biofield, which interacts with and influences the fields around you. When you breathe with coherence, you're not just healing yourself. You're contributing to the coherence of the collective field. This is why meditation practices, breath work, pranayama practices have been considered sacred technologies across cultures for millennia. They're not just personal development tools, they're technologies for shifting consciousness at the collective level. The results of these practices are immediately tangible and prove the dominance of spirit over matter. Pranayama has been extensively studied for its capacity to lower blood pressure, improve digestive function, reduce chronic stress naturally, and rewire the nervous system. The fact that your consciousness, which is volatile Mercury, can directly alter biological functions, which are fixed salt, is undeniable proof of the Hermetic principle that spirit commands matter, that consciousness shapes form. Complete healing is achieved at this level. Mercury, through conscious breath, restores the spagyric process, the separation, purification, and recombination of elements that Paracelsus identified as malfunctioning in the diseased body. By controlling the volatile principle, you impose spiritual order on material and emotional chaos. You correct the internal alchemy. You re-establish the lost alignment. Controlled breathing creates the necessary calm. But true mastery of Mercury isn't just about physical tranquility. It is the revelation of a higher dimension of wisdom, citrinitis, the yellowing, the stage of wisdom. This phase isn't about accumulating information, facts, or data. It's about direct knowing gnosis, the deep experiential understanding of your inseparable unity with the cosmos. You begin to perceive reality without the veil of illusion, without the filter of the conditioned mind. Mercury at this level reveals itself as the universal intellect, the animating force, the underlying intelligence that governs the entire manifested universe. It's the unwavering certainty that the universe is not a cold mechanistic accident, but a unified, intelligent, precisely ordered living system animated by divine consciousness. Wisdom is the inner remembrance that you and the universe are one unified field, a concept that visionaries like Giordano Bruno tried desperately to communicate before being silenced. At this stage of enlightenment, your consciousness transcends the purely material dimension, shifting from the physical to the spiritual, from form to formless. The most advanced science, quantum physics, and the deepest spiritual traditions converge here, both recognizing the practical reality that matter is energy, that consciousness shapes reality. Your healing power resides in your free will and the capacity of your Mercury, your mind, to impose order, purpose, and coherence on your life experience. Healing, therefore, becomes an act of Gnostic freedom and unshakable certainty that consciousness precedes and determines matter. No longer are you a victim of external circumstances. You become the conscious master of your internal responses and your experience. Citrinitas gives you the map, the clear vision that you are a sovereign being capable of consciously co-creating your reality moment by moment. But the journey of wisdom is incomplete unless you stop identifying with the transient, noisy, chaotic content of life itself. Thoughts, emotions, problems, suffering, they all pass like the weather-like roles you temporarily play in this vast drama. The ultimate transformation requires one final shift in consciousness to free yourself from the illusion of the separate self. You must stop being the actor trapped in the story and become the unchanging awareness that witnesses everything. The next step in this journey is the secret to making this wisdom permanent, unshakable, and eternal. The pinnacle of Mercury's mastery and the climax of wisdom's citrinitis is the awakening of the eternal observer, the witness consciousness. This presence is not an escape from life, not a detachment from reality, but a profound shift in your identity from content to context, from the waves to the ocean. The observer no longer identifies with transient content, the passing clouds, or the temporary problems, but with the immutable space that holds them, the sky, the stage upon which life unfolds. By inhabiting this state of observer consciousness, you achieve disidentification from the ephemeral and the temporary. Illness, suffering, crisis, everything is seen as transient, belonging to the character you're playing, the role you're fulfilling, but never to your eternal essence, your true self. You are no longer your fear. You are the consciousness that perceives fear. This shift in perspective makes you immune to reactive instinctive patterns. This practice allows reactive patterns, the crystallized salt or uncontrolled sulfur, to be permanently replaced by conscious responses, by actions guided by wisdom rather than conditioning. You gain total clarity about reality and yourself, understanding the play of life with detachment and spaciousness. The healing promised by Thoth is lasting and permanent only if your deepest self is no longer destabilized by the endless cycle of illness and health, of highs and lows, of gain and loss. Becoming the space, not the content, is to attain a consciousness that is immune to the fluctuations and chaos of both the external and internal world. You stop being swept away by circumstances and the reactive patterns of the mind. Instead, you begin to truly listen, discern, and respond from presence instead of reacting from programming. You embody what's called the soul's memory of eternity, a state of full, unwavering, timeless presence. This shift from content to context, from actor to witness, is perhaps the most challenging and essential aspect of the entire alchemical work. The ego, the small self, the conditioned identity, fights desperately to maintain its position as the center of your experience. It wants to be the main character, the protagonist, the one everything happens to. And as long as you remain identified with that character, you remain vulnerable to its suffering, its fear, and its endless seeking for completion in external circumstances. The practice of observer consciousness isn't about becoming cold, detached, or dissociated from life. It's about developing the capacity to be fully present with all experiences, pleasant and unpleasant, without being owned by them, without losing yourself in them. You can feel intense emotion without becoming the emotion. You can experience physical pain without becoming the pain. You can witness thoughts arising without believing every thought is true, without following every mental thread into anxiety or depression. This is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the direct experience, the sensation, the emotional response to loss or challenge. Suffering is what happens when you resist the pain, when you add layers of story and meaning and identification onto the raw experience. Suffering is what happens when you believe this shouldn't be happening, or I can't handle this, or this will never end. The observer sees pain as just pain, temporary, arising and passing, while the identified self creates suffering through resistance and story. Developing observer consciousness is a practice, not a permanent state you achieve once and maintain effortlessly forever. It's something you cultivate moment by moment, breath by breath, especially in the midst of difficulty. The moments when you're most triggered, most reactive, and most identified with your story are precisely the moments when practicing observer consciousness becomes most essential and most transformative. This is where Mercury proves its mastery, not in perfect conditions, but in the chaos of real life. Gnosis, deep wisdom has been attained. The observer is awake, active, and established. The path of Thoth now demands the final sacred act to seal the healing completely, the alchemical marriage, the union where the three principles salt, sulfur, and Mercury merge into a singular unified reality. Mercury, now in command, must establish its order and wisdom so that rubido, the reddening, can manifest totality. What happens when body, soul, and spirit unite in absolute perfection and stability, creating a new mode of existence? The culmination of the alchemical work is rubdo, the red work representing the definitive realization of the self in its wholeness, its completion. This is the great alchemical marriage, the hieroskimos, the sacred union. It's the perfect conscious final integration of the three principles of Thoth into a state of indescribable, unbreakable harmony. Volatile Mercury spirit unites with fluid Sulfur soul, and both are permanently fixed in purified salt body, generating a new stable, integrated existence. The promise of healing everything without external medicine is fulfilled precisely in this state of totality of individuation in the Jungian sense. Health is no longer just the absence of symptoms, no longer the battle against disease.
It is the state of wholeness of self-perfection where body, soul, and spirit exist in complete, unwavering harmony, aligned with cosmic order at every moment in every breath.
You emerge from Rubido carrying your inner philosopher's stone, your lapis philosophorum, which is not literal gold, but the complete transmutation of your impure, fragmented being into a state of mastery, of wholeness, of sovereignty. Your body salt is vital, purified, alive. Your passion sulfur is perfectly directed, channeled toward purpose. Your consciousness Mercury is anchored in the eternal living as the witness, the observer, full time. Total healing is the capacity for perfect, continuous internal self-correction and ongoing alchemical process. The three forbidden elements of Thoth are your three inner powers, your three keys, which once understood and mastered transform you into a vessel in perfect alignment with the universal mind, with cosmic intelligence. You manifest unwavering vitality that transcends the physical dimension, making your life a continuous act of creation, of manifestation, of sacred expression. Having completed the work, you no longer fear the next crisis, the next challenge, because you now possess the three keys, salt, sulfur, and mercury, to perform your alchemy with precision, autonomy, and mastery. Your life becomes a cycle of continuous, conscious healing where any imbalance is quickly identified and corrected by Mercury, by conscious awareness. The true magic, the ultimate secret of Thoth, is not the healing itself, but the fact that you become the healer, the alchemist who heals from the inside out, manifesting totality in every cell and every moment. The knowledge has been delivered. The journey has been mapped. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I activate the alchemist within. This is your energetic declaration to the field, your signal that you're ready to step into mastery. What will you do first today to begin the purification process, the karmic detox, the activation of these three elements within you? If this resonates with something deep inside you, if you feel the truth of this ancient wisdom stirring in your cells, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency, this movement of remembering sovereignty, of reclaiming the healing intelligence that's always been yours. The more of us who embody this truth, the more the collective field shifts, and the more reality itself transforms. Drop one word in the comments that captures the energy, the intention, the transformation you're choosing right now. Let that word be your energetic signature to the quantum field. Subscribe not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent, to stay aligned with this frequency of wholeness. This is not content consumption. This is a community of consciousness, a collective awakening to the power that lives within. But don't leave yet. I've prepared another transmission for you, a continuation of this journey that will deepen what you've learned and show you how to apply it in your daily life with even greater precision. Click the video appearing on your screen now. Let's continue this transformation together. I'll meet you on the other side.